Okay, good evening. I'm Patty Wipfler. I'm the founder and the program director at Hand in Hand Parenting. And with me tonight is Lori Petro, and I'll introduce her in just a second. And we're going to talk about fostering compassion in our children. And we're very glad you've joined us. We had about 245 people sign up for this podcast, this teleconference, and not everyone's here yet. So I'm going to spend the first 3 minutes talking a little bit about Hand in Hand while people arrive, just give you a little introduction to who we are and what we do. And then I'm going to introduce Lori and tell you a little bit about her. And then she's going to take about 15 minutes and give us her thoughts on fostering compassion in our children. And I'm going to follow, talking about parenting by connection and how some of our listening tools help you foster compassion in your children. So Hand in Hand is a nonprofit organization. I founded it back in 1989, so we're 24 years old in next month. And what we do is support parents to build close connections with their children, because the state of feeling connected, feeling safe, feeling close to parents and grown-ups around them allows children the very best chance to think and grow and stay enthusiastic about their lives and to cooperate with others and to really learn at a tremendous rate. The being connected is key to children's emotional and intellectual intelligence. And we like to help parents. All parents really want to be closely connected with their children. That's why we had children, so we could be as close could be with someone that we get to care about and we get to smooth their way in the world. But all of us find out sooner or later that, boy, is it not easy. Parenting throws up a number of challenges, most of which we did not expect. And a lot of those challenges are emotional. And we really like seeing the transformational change that happens in families when they stumble upon the importance of connection and begin doing things that are proven to connect parent and child, and that are proven to relieve the stress of parenting for parents so that they have more of their waking moments in which they're eager to connect. You know, when parents get a hold of these and begin using them in their families, very good things happen. And I'm glad you're here once again. And I want to introduce Lori Petro, who's going to talk to us now with her information and, you know, the knowledge that she's gained. She's a mom. She's a children's advocate and a speaker. And after an emotionally challenging childhood and a personal journey towards healing and self-awareness, Lori set out on a mission to change the way we speak to each other. She founded Teach Through Love to raise global awareness of empathy, compassionate communication, and peaceful conflict resolution using media, education, and advocacy. So as a mom and as an adult on the autism spectrum, Lori understands the demands of parenting, especially parenting kids with special needs. And her goal is to ease some of the stress by showing adults how to increase cooperation and respect by improving their relationships with children. She teaches privately, virtually, and wirelessly to clients and members of the Family Peace Project, her online parent education membership program. She also contributes to a variety of parenting websites, and she's a regular guest on radio and speaker at schools, universities, hospitals, and conferences nationwide. So, Lori, we are honored to have you with us. I'm so pleased to know of your work and pleased to have you share it with us now.
Oh, Patty, thank you so much for inviting me. The feeling is completely mutual, especially as someone who's coming into this work later in my adulthood. I sort of had a career before, so to be asked by someone like you who has been doing this for so long and honoring families for so long is, to me, it's just real validation of my path and what I've chosen. So thank you for allowing me to join you here.
Sure.
I think that the most amazing thing is that we really share that common idea that allowing our kids to move through their emotions with this supportive base is the foundation of their learning, right, and their development. So I think that's the foundational common ground that we come from. And I come to this work not just as an educator and an advocate, but an advocate for relationships, but from the perspective of a child, because it was really not a career path that I chose, although my degree was in education. It was really after this journey of healing and understanding and making sense of my own childhood that I came to have a real passion for helping families connect. What I realized was that this emotional mastery that we can have is really where the possibilities for change happen. And I think if we think of our lives as this map, and we have many choices of destinations and paths to take, right? But our emotions are sort of the guideposts and the signs along the journey. So, just as we look at signs on the road, our bodies are these instruments that we use to detect the compass points, right, and the directional guides. But I think the trouble is that emotions have not been given that same level of attention, nor the respect or the consideration that I think that they deserve. And so this is something that I really struggled with, control. And we use them to force or manipulate. And then, so what I've done is I've really focused my work on changing the way that we speak to each other. It's about not just parenting. It's not about just changing the parenting. It's really about altering the way we communicate and the way we connect. So I want to just share a couple of tips with you guys. Again, I think that our process of listening and empathizing and getting to the root of the behavior is very aligned. So I know that your stay listening tools will cover that. So I want to just speak today about some other ideas for building our ability to hold that space, that emotional space, so that we can really raise a level of compassion and empathy for our kids. And one of the first tips that I want to talk about is reframing. So I have this umbrella, right, these 4 habits: blame, shame, judgment, and guilt. And I'll kind of talk about examples within each tool. But the first thing that we have to do is really shift our perspective and reframe the child and the problem. And we have to do it without evaluation, without judgment, without opinion. We tend to talk about our children and our challenges from a very limiting belief perspective. And we label, we deny, we say what we think about what we see, in our attempt to make sense of things, but we need to shift that perspective, and we need to start reframing how we speak about children and the challenges that we have by focusing on a couple of things. The first one is observing what we see without that critical eye, just a simple, non-evaluative observation, and then naming what we feel, stating our needs, and then, of course, when we're all calm and receptive, we can share our requests. But let's just take an example of judgment. And judgment can really be positive or negative, and we all fall into this habit, all of these fear habits, the blame, shame, judgment, and guilt. And judgment's a big one. And, a negative judgment might be something like, you say to a child, "You're always interrupting." Or we describe a problem as, "She never listens." But that's a really painful place to start trying to build a bridge of, connection and communication. And that's what gets in our way. It's not that we have bad intentions. It's that we get caught up in what we're saying that's disconnecting us. So we need to remove some of that emotional charge by transforming that judgment into a statement of what we observe, what we see and hear only, not what we think about it, but just what we see and hear, and then our needs and feelings. So instead of saying to a child, "You're always interrupting," or "Stop interrupting," we want to say, and these are always starters, right? This doesn't mean that this is going to make our kids do what we want. This is about building connection, building relationships so we can have influence. But something like, "When you ask me questions before I finish speaking to Daddy, it's hard for me to follow, and I feel frustrated when I can't complete my thought." Right? So right there, we shared the same information, but we've done it in a way that was emotionally responsible. And just today, I had an example with a little girl that comes over to play with my daughter, and her older sister always has to come. Her older sister's very upset about always coming, and she doesn't really like to leave her house. She's 12, and the little girl's 7, but they were coming over, and the 12-year-old left her popsicle trash, or it was a popsicle water ice, in my driveway, and she just sort of left it there, and was. I went over, and instead, I knew she left it there, but instead of pointing out and saying, "What do you think you're doing?" or "Pick this up," or demanding even if I do it kindly, telling her to pick something up, I don't have that relationship with her, so that might be seen as a threat to a child. So what I did instead was I just noticed what I saw. I observed, "Oh, look, there's some trash on the ground." And all of her other 2 sisters were like, "That's not mine, that's hers." And so I said, "Oh, look, your sister Your sisters are saying it's not there. So I'm thinking that means they don't want to pick it up. So it's yours. Would you like me to pick it up and throw it in the trash? Because I don't want to have trash in my driveway. And she looked at me with this look of sort of just this strange, she just sort of stared at me and walked by and bent down, picked up the trash, and went and threw it in my trash can. But I just thought that was such a beautiful example, because if I had approached her in another way, in a way that judged her, told her, that was rude or that was impolite, or again, even if I was kind, it could have set us off on a completely different path. So I chose to build that bridge with relationship by offering to help her, by stating what I saw without judgment, by stating my need. I don't want to have trash, but I did it responsibly. I didn't put the blame on somebody else. Really quick to reframe the problem. She never listens. That's, parents come to me and they describe kids as she's defiant or she's this or she's that, and we have all these judgmental words, but she never listens doesn't really get us very far. So we can say something like, because when we start to change the way we talk about the problem, then our solutions start to open up. So if we say something like, when my child doesn't turn to look at me, I feel angry because I want to be heard and I want to be acknowledged for what I've said. Right? That's taking responsibility. That's staying in our own skin and saying the same thing. It's still communicating our needs. It's still getting that emotion out. Judgment can also be used in a positive way. A parent might say something like, "What a good boy, you cleaned up your room." And that might seem like it's not a big deal, but really underneath that's using our child's need for our approval to sort of control the behavior, right? We want that behavior to repeat, so we praise them for it. But that's short term. So to me, that's not an emotionally healthy choice. It's not a way to build influence. But we can reframe that judgment, even that positive judgment, by saying to the child, by noticing behavior and by telling the child how it added to your experience. So you could say something like, "I noticed that you picked up all your Legos." Right? That's your observation. Now we have a clear path to walk in your room. That's my need that you fulfilled. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to help. And we shared our feelings. So it said the same thing. We sent the same information, but we did it in a way that doesn't make the child rely on our approval. It showed them how they contributed, and kids love to feel like they contribute. That really will bring more cooperation than anything, giving kids that sense that they belong and that they have a say and that they have a voice. So I really want to focus on feedback that consists of non-judgmental observation. Another tool that I want to talk about is a trigger mirror. This is where you look at your child's behavior as a mirror. This is part of that emotional mastery. And this is about us being able to hold that space, because sometimes we are not in a place where we can. And so when we are triggered, we want to ask, what is being reflected back to me? Where is my deepest wound that is being triggered in this moment through this mirror that my child provides with their behavior? Right? This is about getting in touch with your real needs and feelings. It's never just about the behavior in that moment. Helping our kids process their emotions means we need to practice managing our own and modeling that for them and understanding why we react. Why do we get offended right now? What needs are connected to my reactions in this moment? So I don't want anybody to stifle emotions or put on a brave front. I really want you to work through them. And I have so many examples for this, but just one talking about guilt. I had an experience with my daughter. She was about 4.5, and we were at a gym class, and she decided that today she did not want me to leave her side. She was holding my arm, just kind of crying for me to stay close, and I was becoming more and more uncomfortable, and I was getting more and more impatient with her request to stay close. It was just one of those days. And my instinct was to tell her, if you want to be, and even kindly, again, this isn't about just being mean, but this is about how we talk. And I said, if you want to be in this class, then you have to be a big girl. I need to go call Daddy. I'll be right back, right? I said it kindly, but it was a total guilt trip. And I was just trying to get her to be okay with being alone because I was starting to, need that space. And then it hit me. All of a sudden, I remembered it was like this big, bonk in the head. Earlier in that day, I had an upsetting conversation with my mother where I was left with this total feeling of abandonment. Right? Can you see where I'm going with this? So the mirror, I was holding on to this emotional baggage from earlier, right? Big girls don't need their mommies, right? And then her request for my attention and my comfort, it totally triggered me into exactly what I was missing earlier. And then, so once I took that moment to sort of practice that self-reflection, everything changed. I had a bit of empathy for myself. I relaxed into helping my daughter. I said to her, you're feeling uncomfortable because the kids are all running around fast and you'd like me to stay close so that you know that you're safe. And how about if I stay for 5 minutes? And she was like, yep. that's what I wanted. And then she literally finished walking on the balance beam next to me and then said, I'm good now, Mommy, and ran off. So for me, it was such a powerful tool to look inside, to get like that handle on our own emotions and to honor it so that I can sort of detach enough to be emotionally present for my child. And I'm not saying that that it's always about a mirror, that our kids are always reflecting back to us. But if you are having a trigger, really looking inside and saying, what is my deepest wound here? What is being triggered in me?
So I'm going to talk about fostering compassion by first of all saying that children are naturally compassionate. And we have myths about children that are transmitted through, sometimes even through early childhood education. There's a myth, or at least when I was becoming an early childhood educator, that children only parallel play, that they can't really relate to one another until they're past the age of 2. But I did infant toddler care, and I know that, when a 13-month-old infant was off on a vacation for 3 weeks, she kept calling the name of the 6-month-old, that was in our, in our little infant care. So her little buddy Ari, she woke up every morning, she went, Ari, 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 kind of looking for her friend who she had spent most of the mornings of her life with. So children do build relationships. I think it's just that we don't know how to interpret their behavior, and we somehow, we posit that their brains are undeveloped in a social way, and actually children's minds are very, very developed socially. We imagine that children don't know right from wrong, and we have to teach them all of this, when actually there is an inborn understanding of justice and fairness and kindness and respectful treatment. And when children sense any tension in our voices or any kind of communication that doesn't lie in the relaxed and warm and open direction, they tense up, and it actually hurts them. They are built to get hurt when communication is hurtful. They're built to feel hurt when there's not enough connection around them. They're built to get hurt when adults are tense and preoccupied with other things. So children have this very strong, innate warmth and caring for one another, and the only thing that interferes with that is having hurtful experiences. Sometimes illness can do it. A hard birth can tense a child up so that they don't relate as easily to others and can't. And when children are hurt, when they're hurting, they can't feel compassion. So when you see a child who's not showing caring towards another child, you're seeing a child whose thinking has shut down, whose ability to function fully as a warm, relaxed, cooperative human being is not online because they're scared, or because they're sad, or because they feel too separate, or because they are overwhelmed with an experience they're not sure that they know how to deal with. So when children's minds shut down because of negative feelings or the feeling of being unsafe or feeling disconnected, they can't show compassion. And I think the mistake we make as parents is not understanding that the compassion is there, but the connection fires it up. The connection allows it to show. And when children don't feel connected, that's when they hurt somebody, say mean things, grab something from somebody else. And they've already shown us that they can't think. And the mistake that we make is to go, now I want you to be kind to so-and-so, and we tell them what to do, or we, demand correct behavior from them. And they've already given us every signal that we need that their minds are not in line, and they can't possibly be in touch with their warm, open, compassionate self. They are scared, or they are sad, or they are feeling threatened in some way when they do unkind things to one another. And that's when we, kind of bring the big hammer in and go, now say that you're sorry, or, give it back, and children can't. They can't cooperate with that. So if you've been thinking that your child is, mean or a bully, or they don't have the normal amount of compassion, you may have been observing the results of how your child is hurt. and how that hurt governs their behavior. And when you can help remove that hurt, their warm, loving, compassionate, empathic side will spring right back. It's all there. It's just kind of loaded down with the heavy weight of emotional hurt, and that they need to unload so that they can remember who they are and remember how much they care about people. So the tools that we like to offer, I guess the other thing is that parents often think that we have to teach children how to be nice, how to be kind, how to make an apology, all those things. And in my experience, children actually learn all of this from us. It's like children learn us. They don't learn values from the Ten Commandments or all of these other ways that we think we have to teach and instruct and remind. It's like they learn us. And so where we have difficulty, it turns out that our children have difficulty. And this is sort of starkly shown to us when all of a sudden, your child says to his younger brother or sister, cut that out right now, in exactly the same way that you have said, cut that out right now to him. They learn, they learn our kindness and they learn our compassion, and they also tend to learn our weaker spots, the places where we can't hang on to our compassion. And in fact, we are compassionate people, except when we can't think. When we can't think, then we revert back to, the kind of behaviors that our parents had when they couldn't think. It's just these places where our minds turn off are kind of passed on down through hurt, through the carrying of emotional hurt from parent to child and then from parent to child again. And when we get listening time, when we do listening partnerships, which is one of the main listening tools that we at Hand in Hand promote, we have a chance to retrieve ourselves from the automatic reaction to children's behavior that sends us into an uncompassionate place. And so what we like to invite parents to do is to set up listening time with another caring parent, and one parent listens with warmth and no judgment, no evaluation, no advice. You just listen with warmth and care, while the other parent tells you what's good, what's hard, what's awful, how they feel, what they did yesterday that they aren't proud of, and or shares their victories and their pleasure moments with you. And then when a half an hour is up, then they listen to you, and you get to talk about what gets hard. It's like we can hear good things from one another. We can hear good ideas from Lori. But tomorrow, when our children are running down the street when we told them don't run away from me, we can't remember anything Lori said. It's like, come back here right now. Why are you disobeying me? And we get on their case. We're not compassionate at all. But that can change when someone listens to us and we have a chance to cry, we have a chance to laugh, we have a chance to sweat about the things that have scared us. We have a chance to tell someone all of the mean things that run around in our head that were said to us when we were little, that we are trying really hard not to say to our children, but sometimes something like it leaks out. When we have someone to talk to and release emotional tension with, it really can change the quality of our parenting by a good bit. It relaxes us as people to be listened to and to be cared about in that way. No one has to tell anyone what to do. We just have to listen. The human mind is meant for, the best of respectful treatment, the best of warm treatment, the best of play, the best of kind and ample attention. And we can give this to each other when we can think, but when we're triggered by events that, call up feelings that we have stored and haven't yet handled, haven't yet expressed, haven't yet cried about or stormed about or laughed about, then we're not thinking so well anymore. So building our own compassion through listening partnerships gives us a chance to do what we call stay listening, which means and when children are off track and need a limit, we basically go less for talking to children about what they need to do. We basically think if a child is off track, they've already showed us we can't think, and therefore we make the assumption that they're not going to be able to process Now give that back to Sally. You took it away, and you need to give it back to her. That they already, by grabbing whatever it was from Sally, they already showed us that they're not in a place where they can tune in to anybody, including us, when we say something. So they might be intimidated by us and obey, but they're not going to learn from that. So what we invite parents to do is bring the limit. So if something got grabbed in a non-compassionate, non-cooperative way, you just move in, because you're the thinking person. The child's not thinking. They don't know how to act right in the situation. So you move in and you put your hand on the thing that got grabbed, and you say, you make eye contact. You try to connect, because when children are connected, they can think. And if you're connecting with a child who can't think, what will happen is pretty soon they will be able to offload the feelings that are in the way of their ability to think again. So when they've acted uncompassionately towards another child, you move in, you bring your hand, you put your hand on the thing they grabbed, and you say, I can't let you have that. That was Sally's. That's all you have to say. You don't have to say grabbing is bad, this is against the rules, don't do that, let's negotiate, how about turns. You don't fix it at all. Just put your hand on the thing and let the child have a cry about the fact that you're not going to let them play with it. You don't tell them to give it back. You say what you think needs to happen. I think that needs to go back to Sally. And Sally might be crying because getting it grabbed has hurt her feelings. And that's good. Crying is a recovery process. So if she's crying, she's getting over the insult and getting the bad feelings out of her system. And you have your hand on the thing so that the child who can't think right next to Sally doesn't, walk away with this and then go grab something else 5 minutes later because they're still not thinking. You just say, let's give that back to Sally, but you don't force anything. You just stay with them while they reach for their feelings and unload their feelings. And when they finish unloading their feelings, you just keep saying, are you ready to give it back? No, I don't want to give it back. Okay, I'll stay with you till you're ready. And then you ask again 2 minutes later, I'm right here, and I think Sally needs to have it back. No, I don't want to give it back. Okay, I know you're not ready yet. I'll stay right with you till you're ready. And it's not, there's not, I don't know, it's all you have to do. It's called stay listening for a reason. You stay and you listen. And feelings pour out, and as feelings pour out, connection with you pours in. Like there you are, you have a warm look on your face. You're allowing the child lots of emotional room to have any and every feeling they want to about the fact that you just, you will not let them take something and play with it after they grabbed it, because they're not thinking, so they're going to go do something else that doesn't work, with the next little child around them. And when they're finished, when enough hurt has poured out, and by the way, in the middle of this, often the thing that actually was bugging them, the reason they couldn't think, often comes out. So when you're in preschool and this happens, you set a limit, bring a limit. Child is crying and crying. Usually within 2 minutes, I want my mommy, I want my mommy, where is she? Oh, see, your mommy will be back. And that child couldn't think and couldn't really relate to other children because they're scared to be there without their mommy. And all of these fear feelings come out, and you just stay and you keep your hand on the thing, and they don't have to tell you what's really going on underneath, but often they do. And when they finish crying about how badly they want their mommy, they are, and receive the connection that you offer. They are happy to be there. They feel like your very best friend. They feel comfortable and relaxed with you, and they're able to function without being hard on other children. Like they have their compassion back because now they're connected to you. Now they can think. Now they can tap into that part of their social mind that lets them be very flexible around other children, lets them for turns and share toys and laugh and giggle and bounce around without getting insulted or scared or hurt or anything. So stay listening is one very powerful tool for offering compassion to a child when they can't think. And the limit that you offer is also very important, the limit or the expectation. It's like that's a real kindness to a child to move in and bring a limit. Don't wait for them to do it. They can't. So you take over and say, no, actually, you need to do your homework right now. Or actually, this was Stevie's chair and you sat in it, but he likes this chair, so I'm going to ask you to get out of it. Let them have their feelings, and then they will move on when they've finished. Lori, do you have any last things to say to the parents here?
Just really practice self-care. I think we all get upset. We all have bad days. This isn't about perfection. It's really about just becoming conscious of the patterns that we're creating. And that really, it requires us to take care of ourselves. We can't, it's that oxygen mask, metaphor where we have to take care of ourselves before we can really be there for our kids. So
I want to thank you for your wisdom and for your sharing tonight. It's been very, 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 very useful. And I want to thank you all for loving your children so much and for trying so hard and caring so deeply and pouring all you are into your children and your family. It's a good endeavor. It makes us better people to do that. And darn, it's hard. So we hope you access Lori's resources. We hope you access Hand in Hand's resources so that you're not doing it alone. So take care, all. And
thank you.
So thanks a lot, Lori.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. We look forward to connecting with you again soon.